Hi, this is Geshe Michael Roach with a continuation of the ACIP database search program, Gopher, and how to use it. We're in the middle of discussion of the categories of the Sungbum, or native Tibetan works. We have reached a section called Hlaso. Hla means deity or goddess or god, angel. So in this spelling, Pao San Nara So, means to create. And it should be distinguished from So, which is Kao Sanaro So, high tone, which means to fix. And Soa, the category Soa means medical studies. But La So, So means the fine arts, or painting deities, sculpting deities, murals on the wall about deities, any kind of fine arts, architecture, the construction of stupas, how to paint a certain tanka. So these are very interesting. These are really interesting sections on what a tanka should look like, what a particular person should look like, and they're very interesting books for people who are interested in the iconography of Buddhism. And they go back a long way, and there are very strict standards about how to the dimensions for painting holy figures, and they are given in those books. Very strict. Like how many inches this way, how many inches that way, how big should the ears be, how big should the eyes be. And I found them very useful for identifying angels in tankas. Okay, and also I think a lot of us are interested in building temples or stupas, and they give you the correct dimensions for those things. Next one is called Dodel. I have the arrow here. Maon Danaro Do, what's that mean? Maon Danaro Do? Sutra. And then Del means Delpa. So Dondel means commentaries on sutras. So really all of Tibetan Buddhist literature ends up being commentaries on at least the Indian commentaries on the sutras. But it's rather unusual for a Tibetan to write an independent commentary upon an actual sutra, like the Heart Sutra or the Diamond Cutter Sutra or other sutras. It's kind of unusual, which is surprising. One of the greatest writers of commentaries on sutras is our own Chone Lama Drapa Shidu from the 16 and 1700s, and really he wrote almost as many as anyone else. He has a beautiful commentary to the Heart Sutra, a beautiful commentary to the Diamond Cutter Sutra, and we have used those. So that's a category which is a little bit underrepresented in Tibetan Buddhist literature. Ngumba means Chungumba. Cha means what in Sanskrit? Dharma. Ngumba means Abhi. So Chungumba means Abhidharma. And this is the writings of the first of the four great schools of India, called the Vaibhashika school. And the most famous example of this literature is the Abhidharma Kosha, written by Master Vasubandhu around the 4th century. And this Abhidharma is considered a Hinayana subject, a Theravadan subject. So Tibet is known as a Mahayana country where Mahayana was studied, but I think what a lot of people don't appreciate is that in the Tibetan monasteries, especially in the Geshe program of a Gelugpa monastery, we are required to study almost equally the four great schools of ancient India. So you will get very, very fine commentaries written on the subject of Abhidharma, Vaibhashika school, in Tibetan. And so I have some favorites. I translated the first Dalai Lama's commentary to the Abhidharma Kosha, which is about 400 pages in the Western printing style. And right now I'm working on a very good one by Chone Lama Drapa Shedu, which I think we'll study for the next 10 or 20 years. And that's a beautiful commentary on this first school of Buddhism. In there we also have a really great commentary known as Chimdze, which is quite ancient. It's about 700-800 years old. It's written by Chim Jampe-Yung, and it's a very, very thorough commentary on the Abhidharma, but a little too obscure for practical use by Western students. But as a historical document, it's very important. The next category here is called Nyamlen, and in the category of Nyamlen, Nyamse Lemba means to put something into practical use or actual practice as opposed to theory. So Nyamlen section would treat subjects like how to do meditation or like mostly that, or personal, small personal recitations and things like that. So these relate to your daily personal practice, and there are many, many briefer works. So for example, the Jorcha, which is a book about how to prepare for meditation, very famous meditation song. So that category will contain a lot of briefer practice guides, so that makes them very important and very beautiful. The next category is called Parchen, which is short for Parotuchimba or Shiroki Parotuchimba. This is a tricky one because in the Kangyur, and the Tengyur, Parchen, mostly the Kangyur, Parchen refers to any book which talks about the perfection of wisdom. And there are massive books, 100,000 verses, 20,000 verses, 25,000 verses, 8,000 verses. There are massive books in the Kangyur, the teachings of Lord Buddha, called Perfection of Wisdom. But when we study in the Gelugpa monasteries, the word Parchen has come to be a nickname for one of the 5 great subjects, and it refers to one of a subgroup in one of the 4 great schools of ancient India, which is the lower middle way school called the Svatantrika, which has nothing to do with Tantra, it's just the same word. And this is a lower interpretation, mainly based on Master Baba Viveka from ancient India, of the middle way. And a classic book from ancient India, which is often interpreted this way, is the Abhisamya Alankara, Mundokyen, by Master Asanga, taking dictation from Maitreya. So, in the monastery, we spend 12 years on that text, which is only 75 pages long. So you can imagine, that's an average of like 6 pages a year. A whole year of intense debate and study on 6 pages of this text. So it's very beautiful, very deep. It has a lot of unique ideas that don't appear in the higher middle way school. And it is the longest course in the Geshe studies. It's almost half the time is devoted to this subject, which is the lower middle way. A lot of useful, beautiful subjects like how to take refuge, or what is the meaning of nirvana, or what are the gradations of emptiness, selflessness. And so that's a massive amount of literature in Tibet dedicated mainly to the monastic textbooks, to the perfection of wisdom, meaning in this context, the lower half of the middle way school. Next we have Tensek. Tensek is a word that you see used even in the Tengyur catalogs, which means miscellaneous stuff. And it just means stuff that it doesn't fit well anywhere else. And these are just miscellaneous works that we couldn't fit into the normal topics of Buddhism. But they're cool and they're nice, and if you don't have anything to do on a rainy afternoon, you can go in there and see what's there. Okay, the next section is called Gyut. What does Gyut mean? Gyut? Tantra, the study of Tantra. And this is massive. I mean, half of Buddhist literature, classically, the Kangyur and Tengyur, of the 4,600 texts of those 2 bodies of everything which survives from ancient India, about half is dedicated to the secret teachings of Tantra. And we've really we've worked on it very hard. We've studied the ancient cataloging systems, and which were partly based on 4 great classes of Tantra. And then we decided that it was worth it to modify that and to treat the subject categories of Tibetan Buddhism per deity or per angel. So all the books on Yamantaka or Bhairava, for example, are clumped together. And then all the books on Vajrayogini are together, rather than doing it some other way. In the case of Tara practice, there will be 2 levels of Tantra represented. And we've kind of treated all the Tara practice together, and then the reader will decide which level of practice would they be at. But this is a massive amount of literature. It's a massive job. We finished categorizing it. It was a massive job. This is thousands of books on the secret teachings. And inside each deity, for example, inside Vajrayogini, you would have many, many beautiful subcategories. Like there are many texts about how to do the fire offering for Vajrayogini. There are many texts on how to do the retreat for Vajrayogini. There are texts on how to do the offerings. There are texts on how to do the Seichu ceremony twice a month. There are texts on how to do the mantra properly, and how to do the sadhana, the daily practice of Vajrayogini. And then there are history books about the practice of Vajrayogini. So there are many categories that we've put inside Tantra. So that's a whole subject in itself. But I think what you'll be glad to know is that we've finished the massive task of breaking out all of the possible angels or holy beings, enlightened beings, which have tantric practices. And that's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary job, and it's all finished. Okay. Next we have the Namtar. Namtar is an interesting word. It's a short for Nampar Tarpa. Nampar Tarpa. So Tarpa means moksha. Yeah, freedom. And then Nambar means very much. Okay. Now, interestingly, in Tibetan word for a famous Lama's biography is Namtar. So we don't say life story, or we don't say Jataka, or we don't say Avadana, or we don't say life story. We say Namtar. It means tell me their liberation. It means tell me their life history of famous lamas. So this is a very beautiful category of literature, and it's very, very common for a heart disciple to do a namtar of their teacher. So oftentimes in the collected works of the disciple, we have a namtar which gives the life story of the teacher. You would expect the life story of the teacher to be in the collected works of the teacher, but oftentimes you have to go to the main disciple's collected works, and you will find the biography of their heart teacher. And it's a wonderful, again, there are two kinds of namtars. One are sort of, what do you call it? Overly flowery, because they didn't have a lot of facts about the Lama's life. And they get a little kind of, I don't know, irritating, cloying. And then there are real biographies in which someone has carefully recorded what the Lama was doing every day, especially during the latter part of their life when they were already famous. So who did they meet? What kind of books were they writing at the time? How were they spending their day? What teachings did they give? What questions did people ask them? For example, my root Tibetan teacher's name was Ken Rinpoche Losang Tarchen, Geshe Losang Tarchen, Serme Kensur Geshe Losang Tarchen. His teacher was the tutor of the present Dalai Lama, Trijang Rinpoche, Kyabje Trijang Rinpoche. And in Kyabje Trijang Rinpoche's Namtar is an interesting reference to when my teacher came and asked him some questions. So I get to hear more about my teacher by reading the biography of his teacher, the Namtar. So those Namtars, they're very rich in meaning. They're more spontaneous in some cases. Sometimes they're mixed up, flowery, and facts, like the famous Namtar Chemo, the great biography of Jetsun Kappa. And then sometimes they are very intimate glances into what was it like in that Lama's home. And you see some miraculous things, some beautiful, like amazing events, like somebody's flying by or some angel drops in. And they're very beautiful records of people's lives. They're a little bit difficult for foreigners to read because they are often not in philosophical language, but they are more often in what you would call sort of colloquial language. So they're not easy for a foreigner, a non-Tibetan, to pick up and read lightly. But oftentimes to work through a namtar is a great way to get a look at Tibetan culture, the culture of the monasteries, of the lamas, and the Tibetan language. We'll continue with our Sungbum study in the next video. Thank you.